Good afternoon. Welcome to today's session, Elevate Your Personal Brand. I'm Dean Seddon, and hopefully you can see me on the various social channels. We've got about 800 people, 900 people registered for today's event. So in 45 minutes or so, I'm going to walk you some of the key elements that you need to employ to elevate your personal brand. So just so that you're aware, just whilst we're making sure everybody can find us and get into wherever they're watching, just a couple of things. There is a live chat, and during the session, I'll try and answer some of your questions as we go. That's really important to me. Make sure that you get what you want from this session. The second thing is, as I share some of the stuff that we're going to talk about, I'm going to kind of try and make some applications to various different sectors. So if you share in the chat any kind of relevant sectors that you're working in, we'll use them as examples. So go ahead, let us know where you're joining from in the chat. I can see some people are already here joining us in the chat, but let us know where you're joining from, and we will try and tailor some examples from you. Just one other thing, there's no sales pitch in today's session, so don't expect like a QVC home shopping channel thing or a countdown timer. That's not what we're about. But if after today's session you think, hey, maybe these guys can help us, drop me a line or drop us a line. Our email address and details are all around. We'll put it in the chat too. But if you get value and you want to investigate how we can help you, by all means, but you're not going to get this sales pitch, countdown timer, home shopping channel thing. So we've got a few people saying while they're in recruitment, cybersecurity, apparel design. So there's some real interesting different sectors here. Business growth consultant. So there's a lot of interesting things, and please do in the chat ask questions, accounting, so that we can make sure that we apply this in lots of different ways. Tech for good, awesome. So what I want to do is I want to just lay some foundations of what a personal brand should be, recruitment again, what a personal brand should be, and then how you build it or elevate it. Entertainment, brill. So first thing we talk about: real estate, sports business, digital marketing. So let's just think about a personal brand for a minute. So if you're looking to establish or develop or build out a personal brand, there's a couple of things you have to decide upon before you go forward. Number one is, who's this personal brand for? Who's this personal brand for? I'll give you an example. Let's say, for an example, you are looking to get on more stages. Perhaps you're looking to speak at more events. So this is a logical one to do. You want to speak at more events, and as a result, you elevate your profile and get more business. So think about this. You go to speak at events in front of somebody else's audience, and that audience latches onto you, and therefore you get business. So there's the speaking and public speaker personal brand as a category. Now, some of you may think, well, what I need to do is elevate my personal brand as a public speaker, but who is that personal brand for? It's actually for the event organizers, not for the attendees, because you elevate yourself on the platform, you perform on the platform when you get there. Actually, your marketing collateral, your personal brand, is to build out for event organizers. If you're looking to use your personal brand, say on social media, to attract clients, you have to really focus in on who are those clients, what industries are they in, and why should they hang on my words. Sometimes we get confused about what's the brand we're trying to build. And simply put, a personal brand is just making yourself and what you do, all of it aligned together, so that when people think of the thing that you do, they remember you. Real simple. It's about attaching a piece of memory to your name, to your image, to your message, so that people remember you are the person. It's about elevating you, but when you elevate yourself, you automatically can position yourself as a higher value, higher level of expertise. So I want to walk through some steps that you can take to elevate that brand. But remember, the foundation to this is, what do you want this brand to achieve? Is it to get you on stages in front of crowds? Is it to get you in front of customers and give yourself an advantage, a branding advantage? What is the message, or what's the position you want to take, and who are the target people who need to recognize your brand? Because ultimately, I don't know whether you can flick to the whiteboard here, a personal brand, it's not very clear that actually, a personal brand, let me see if I can tinker here. I'll upset the studio people here, but the personal brand is about creating memorability. Memorability. That's what you're trying to create here. Memorability. In other words, they remember you visually in one way, shape or form. They remember your message, and they remember the solution you bring. So it's about getting people to remember this. And so tools that you can use is visual tools. So things like color schemes, things like vocabulary, things like your face and imagery. Yeah, I'm a British person and not the most prettiest British person, but I know that for people to remember me, I have to be visible. Yeah, you have to be visible, and you have to align your visuals. Real simple stuff so that people can recognize your image, your brand really quickly. So I'll give you an example. If you've anybody seen the film Inception? Has anybody seen the film Inception? Answer in the chat if you've seen the film Inception. It's got Leonardo DiCaprio in. It's a Roland Emmerich film. I think it was done mid-2000s actually, mid-2010s, in the teens. The film is basically about a group of people who have technology where they can go into people's dreams. And in those dreams, they plant ideas. And the idea of Inception is to plant an idea into somebody else's head. And not in a way where they think it's deliberate, where they think it's their idea. And your personal brand, to really elevate it, you've got to plant the idea that and plant the perception that you are the go-to person for a very particular thing. We live in a very crowded social media landscape. We live in a very crowded media landscape. And if you're going to cut through all of that noise and be remembered for something, you have to have a consistent visual representation of that. So that's color schemes, fonts, your photograph, your imagery, all of that stuff has to be consistent. Not to the point where it drives your personality out. That's the worst mistake you can make. But actually so that people recognize your face, your name, who you are. And that can feel really uncomfortable, especially as a British person who, you know, you're supposed to be all reserved and stuff. But you have to do it. Not every day. You don't want to look like you love yourself too much. You have to kind of seed that in so that there's a visual consistency. So there's the visual consistency that really does matter. Quick tips, 2 color schemes, 2 color choices. Don't go nuts with color choices. I have tinkered with this, but what I've found is what gets the resonance, visual resonance, is actually 2 clear colors that you pick and use. So visual, pictures, yourself, videos of yourself, all of that stuff really matters so that people get this mental association with who you are. So the visual becomes really important. I'm going to do the high level ones and then we're going to dig into some more in-depth ones. So then we've got the message. Now, you think that this one's an easy one, but actually it's one of the more tricky ones. The message is actually really tricky to land Because it's not what you say, it's what people understand from what you say. So you've got to make, if you look at all of the big brands, personal brands there are out there right now, what they are doing is communicating things in a very simple and straightforward way. And their message achieves resonance. Now, I call a message where it resonates is where it speaks directly to, almost like they're psychic, it speaks to an audience exactly where they're at. In order for you to achieve that message resonance, you have to really define quite tightly the audience that you are going to have to create and build. So who is that audience? It cannot be everybody. It cannot be every business owner. It cannot be every accountant. It cannot be every recruitment manager. It can't be every HR manager. It has to be a narrow audience. And if you want to make money from your personal brand, if you want to get it to get speaking gigs or elevate your pricing and your services you already offer, you need to think about the addressable market for your personal brand, and then find a market where there's at least 20,000 people. 20,000 people. You won't need 20,000 people, but look for an audience. So if we look at audience, you need 20K. 20,000 people. I'm not saying you have to influence them right now. I'm not saying you have to do anything with them. But this is a sense check to go, is there enough people in the audience I want to serve that supports my personal brand? In other words, is there a crowd that I can serve? And roughly about 20,000 people is a safe group. So most of the people watching here will go, 20,000, is that all? Well, actually, we're going to drill it down even more. Because what you'll find is to elevate your personal brand, you probably only need a very small number of people to really elevate what you're doing. So 20,000 people is the key. If your audience is smaller than that, you're going to struggle. It's not impossible, but what it means is you're fishing in a very small pond. 20,000 kind of tells you there's a good crowd of people. But the bigger you go, the risk you become more broad. And whilst there's nothing wrong with being broad, you know, I'm not into this, you have to niche everything down. If you look at some of the big personal brands out there at the moment, you think of things like people like Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins has a widespread appeal across lots of different industry sectors, verticals, the works. But it's taken him a long time to establish that position. And so if you're looking to have wide appeal, broad appeal, you need to bear in mind to get that catch, to get that momentum behind you, it will take a lot more effort than if you focus on an audience of, say, 20,000 people-ish. Get that and build out from there. So an audience of 20,000 people. But when we start to think about this in a different way, I'm going to show you some practical strategies to build your brand in a moment. Somebody just asked a question. It's not impossible to sell and influence on less than 20 grand. It's not impossible. I would agree it's not impossible, but it is tough, because once you start to roll this out, you've got to get in front of these people. You've got to stay in front of these people. And if that is a small group to begin with, you will struggle. So 20,000 is a safe number. But when we think about your fan base, and people won't like this phrase, fan base, yeah, the fan base are the people who really love what you do, right? For most people to catch that momentum, to get that personal brand flying and really bringing new people in, you would need about 100 people. Now, I'm not talking about t-shirt wearing roadies here. I'm talking about people who really value what you do and are prepared to engage with you on social media and interact with you on social media and recognize you as an expert, a leader in the field, somebody who's had added value to their world. The actual number is 100. 100 people will be enough to build your brand. Now, we're not talking about 100 connections on LinkedIn. We're not talking about 100 followers. We're talking about 100 people who really get what you do and really love what you do. So to build that, you've got to have a deep, meaningful encounter with a large number of people. One of the reasons I like doing these events, and we do them for free, is I influence a large group of people in one go. This video, by the time it's finished, will be watched by, 2,000-3,000 people. It'll get 500-600 views live, and then on replay we'll get, however many more through YouTube and what have you. But one of the best things you can do is build that fan base through human-to-human encounters. It's the best way for people to get you. And some people watching this will go, I don't get Dean, no interest, and check out. And some people go, he talks a lot of sense. I quite like his way of doing things. It's quite straight talking, down to earth. I quite like it. So this fan base will build by you having more and more human-to-human encounters. So video is brilliant for this. Using videos, things like this, group calls, all of that stuff where you impart value. Because what you're trying to do is associate, and I don't know whether I've got room to do this here, is associate you, your message, and what your goal is. Yeah, so in other words, is it to sell something? Is it to get speaking gigs? So it's like maybe we'll move to this screen here. It's like what you're trying to do is align those things. So people get you, they get your message or your value, and then they see your goal. So we would call it you, your value, and your offer or your service or what you're hoping to achieve. What do you want out of building this brand? What do you want? So memorability is about those lines being joined. Those dots being joined in people's minds, that they understand who you are, they like you, they like the cut of your jib, they like what you've got to say and the value you bring to their world, so they want to follow, they want to engage with you, and then they see the difference you're making and they understand clearly the difference you're making in people's worlds. Does that make sense for everybody so far? So the audience, needs to be about 20,000. The fan base you need to build is about 100. 100 people who are die-hard fans. I'm not talking about roadies and stalkers and all that stuff. I'm talking about people who really appreciate what you do. It's about 100 people. And for somebody to get into that position where they're a die-hard fan, they'll probably have to consume somewhere around 7 hours of content in one way, shape or form. The more impactful content is obviously video because your personality comes across, but podcasts, videos, posts of any kind, anytime you interact, it starts that 7-hour clock ticking that builds that fan base of 100 people. So your message really has to align up with who you are. And so when we come back to how do we build that fan base, we need to talk about the backstory. So the backstory, everybody who has a personal brand has a backstory because people want to know about you. They want to know where you come from. They don't want to know every last thing in your history. They don't want to know what school you went to and all of that stuff. But they want to know who this person is a bit better. So I'll give you an example. I'll tell you a bit about my backstory so you can see where I come from. I come from a very working class family. My dad was a coal miner. So I'm the only person in my family who started a business and didn't go to university. Had to work my way up through different businesses and just had I wanted to change things, wanted to do things differently. I didn't want to go to uni to work at a supermarket. I wanted to find something, my own path. I wanted to do something different. And along that journey, I made horrendous mistakes, but I've learned a lot. And now I spend most of my life helping people not repeat my mistakes and learn from my mistakes. But every person needs a backstory. And that backstory can't just be the glossy success piece. You know, if you're an accountant or recruitment person and you want to get people to warm to you, you want to get people to trust you, you want to get people to build that virtual relationship with you, because that's what a personal brand is, where they associate who you are, what you're about. You need to share your backstory, some of the mistakes you've made, some of the slip-ups you've made. Tell that journey, not the full 30-year history, but some key stories that will help people see why you do what you do, why this matters to you, why it's not just about money for you. This is really important that you get that across in what you're doing, and share stories that help people understand the difference you've made in the world and why you want to make a difference. So you need that 20K crowd, that group of people who you want to build that brand with. You need to establish that fan base. I'm going to give you some tips on how to do that in a minute. You need to build your backstory and create your backstory. Use some stories. And all of these are trying to align your identity, your message with your goal, so that people see that this is congruent. It's joined up. It's one thing. People know if they want to grow their business organically, they want to do it without cold, hard selling stuff, Dean is the guy. That's one of the things that I'm trying to do. And we've got a question here. If you work in sports business, ticket sales, marketing or revenue, I would love to connect with you on LinkedIn. Kevin, come find me. Come find me on LinkedIn. So we've got to build that backstory. We've got to build that audience, that fan base. Now the message as we shared earlier, it needs to align with what I call diagnosis. Yeah. A lot of people are so keen to explain how they can get to a destination, but they don't help people understand how their current situation is. So think about this from your point of view. You'll see people on social media all the time. It's telling you how wonderful their world is, how wonderful this is, and how they can help you do X, Y, or Z. But the best way to build memorability with your audience, the best way to build that piece with your audience, is actually to help them make sense of where they are right now. So think about it. If you're helping people on a journey, they want to know that you understand where they've been. Yes, let me move this. I'm going to break the camera a little bit, but let's try and do that. Can we shoot in on that, Jack? Maybe put me picture in picture. Just locking on this, Jack. Just locking on that. Right, so I'm going to kind of hide out the way for a minute so people can see it. So this is you, your message, and your goal. What do you want to achieve from building this brand? Those three things have to be aligned, and these things help you build it. When we're talking about the message, when you want to influence somebody, you want to make sure that they know you have been where they've been. So helping people understand diagnosis, helping people understand their current situation is really important. If people don't see that you understand, they have no reason to listen to you. They have no reason to hang on your words, and they have no reason to focus on listening to you in the future. So what you want to do is make sure you help people you explain to people why you understand their situation. Even better than that, help people see why their situation is the way it is. Why are they struggling to recruit people? Help people make sense of that. When you turn a light bulb on for somebody, it's very hard for them to forget it. I can remember this powerful concept about messaging that I learned a few years ago. And I was sat in a room, and it was a very informal gathering, and somebody who'd been on the world stage, there was about 15 people in the room, and there was somebody who'd been on the world stage for many, many years, speaking in front of tens of thousands of people on business and all of this stuff. And we were in a room, there's 10 or 15 people in the room, and he started sharing, and something switched on. Like, do you know when sometimes like you think about something and suddenly something so obvious becomes so clear? Well, I had this moment in this room, and it was like a, you know, like when your jaw drops kind of thing. And I was like, and I can remember that moment to this day. I can remember what I ate. I can remember the name of the person. I keep an eye on that person on social media because they opened my eyes to something I never thought of before, or never thought of in that way. It helped me make sense of my situation. And so often what we do, we're so quick to try and focus on the message of where you can help people, but actually the power in terms of memorability is helping people see why they are where they are right now. Diagnosis content, diagnosis messaging, helping people see the reality of their situation. Yes, Ryan, an epiphany. Yeah, you suddenly go, this all makes sense to me. That is the moment you gain when they get that resonance. Once you get that diagnosis, you achieve resonance. Yeah, and I can remember when this happened to me, I ended up on the edge of my seat listening to what that person was saying, because it was so powerful, helping me see why I am where I am. And a great quote, it's from, I think his name's 𝗝cznie𝗿𝗂𝗂. He was an engineer in General Motors in the early part of last century as they were building cars for the very first time. And he said something very powerful. He said, the better you understand the problem, if you understand the problem, you have half the solution already. That wasn't a very eloquent quote, really. But basically it was, if you understand the problem well enough, you have half the solution. And so suddenly, by helping people see where they are right now, you create that epiphany. You actually end up where you open their eyes and they can see the opportunity that you're offering. Whether that's recruitment, whether that's consulting, whether that's accounting, you help people see where they are and suddenly realize there's a new world. There's a new way. There's a new place for me to get to. There's a new opportunity for me. This person's opened my eyes to something. We need that message to go out to more people. Once you give somebody that diagnosis moment, that moment of resonance, where your message lands with them and makes total sense to them, you actually get a fan. You get somebody who really believes in what you do and sees the benefit because you've opened their eyes. Yeah, you've opened their eyes to their current situation. You've helped them see for the first time. It's like my eyesight is actually horrendous and I look ridiculous without glasses, right? But as soon as I put these glasses on, the world becomes clear. My eyes haven't changed, but I now know I want glasses. I don't, I'm just too terrified. I'm a bit of a wimp. I can't possibly put those contact lenses in. I'm just a wimp about stuff like that. So this resonance comes from diagnosing people, helping people see exactly where they are right now. And then once you've got that, that helps you build your fan base. That helps you build your fan base. So some quick tips. I said I'd keep it short and sweet today on this session. If you want to get started, you know you need to build your visual representation and have a consistent visual representation. You need to show up consistently in the places that your audience, your 20K audience are. Whether that's social media, whether that's LinkedIn, whether that's physical events, you need to be in those places. You have to build that network and be visible. One thing you can do on social media is look at who are the other influencers in that space, who are the other brands in that space, and go and engage with them. Pick 10 or 20 of them, engage with them, interact with them, build up a relationship with them. And in today's society, in today's world, social media world, collaboration is welcome. Collaboration is a great thing. And if you do a podcast, if you do an interview, use your relationships to build your network and associations with other personal brands in your space. It's not a competition. It's not about you being better than them or them being better than you. It's about you helping each other elevate your own presence. It's actually about you elevating. There's an interesting point in this, in that there's a book called The 22 Immutable Laws of Branding. It's worth a read, 22 Immutable Laws of Branding. And there is a chapter on what's called the law of category. I think it's the second chapter in the book. It's called the law of category. And it uses the example of Pepsi and Coke. And Pepsi and Coke are in the same category of Coca-Cola style drinks. And you would think that more competition into that sector over the years would have diminished the influence of those two brands. But what tends to happen is the more people enter the sector, the bigger the category becomes. And so what happens is you end up with the two major brands not losing market share, but actually growing the sector itself. And you see this actually with destinations. You see this in leisure and tourism. You see that actually if you create a cinema and a restaurant and all of these other things around, that actually what happens is you create a destination and more people come because it's all in one place. The law of category is really important. So as you're trying to build your fan base, go and network and engage and interact and share ideas with, and podcast and blog and share posts and engage with the audiences of the people who are already further down the road than you. They might be 2 years down the road, they might be 10 years down the road. Don't pick the megastars, the Tony Robbins of the world. Pick the people who are a bit further down the road than you, so you can collaborate, so you can build relationships, so you can network with them. You can actually build meaningful relationships because their audience and your audience will be aligned, and it just works. So pick 10 to 20 people, 10 to 20 people, and go and engage with them. So I'm just going to kind of recap here. If you've got questions, because I've gone through this at quite a pace, the key is building memorability, and memorability around you, your message, and what you want to achieve. What do you want people to go away saying you can help people with? So that's really important. You need an audience of 20,000 as a minimum, really. Don't go nuts with millions. You need a fan base of 100, which you'll have to build by groundwork, getting in front of people, events, networking, webinars. Anything that gets you interacting with people is a win. Build that fan base, get your backstory nailed, the good and the bad, share it, be visually consistent, build that message with diagnosis content. Can't emphasize enough. Once you've got that diagnosis content, you start to resonate with an audience because their message, your backstory, all of this stuff starts to complement, and resonance builds trust. Because people trust people who make sense. People trust people who help them see their situation more clearly. So I'm going to produce a worksheet, so if you want a copy of the worksheet, drop a message into us at hi@maverrik.io, and we'll send you a worksheet on this information. Get that to you. I'll put the link on screen, the video, the caption on screen, so you can get the email, hi@maverrik.io, and we will send you the worksheet to put all of this together to help you elevate and build your personal brand. Got any more questions? Pete, exactly the point. 55 minutes working on it, thinking about the problem, 5 minutes to actually identify the solution. Brilliant. Okay, we're going to wrap up. Do it short, sweet, and quick. Thank you for joining us. I'll send the worksheet if you email us. Do come find me on LinkedIn if you've got any other questions. Thank you for joining us again, and we'll see you on the next broadcast.
Past year, Maverrik has helped generate more than 15 million in new business. The biggest reason for this is our 90-day training and implementation platform we call the Accelerator program, where we teach your team to sell on social media with an implement-as-you-go strategy. It's not a pre-recorded course, it's hands-on sales training that develops and grows with you, with 90 days of real action that generates business and long-term revenue. So who is it for? This program is for entrepreneurs, marketing and sales professionals who want to sell without ads, cold calling, or pushy tactics. A better way of selling with real steps to take, which speeds up your sales process without burning any bridges. These are just a few examples of results our members have achieved using the Accelerator. As you can see, the Accelerator isn't about quick wins, it's about building a better sales process. If you'd like to learn more, just book a call with the Maverrik team and we'll show you how the Accelerator program can win you new business.